How's it going? I'm here with Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor at Comic-Con Revolution in Chicago. So, I guess first of all, for those of you who don't know, tell us who you are.
Well, if you don't know who Amanda Connor is, and you're in comics, then you really should be ashamed of yourself.
She's the gum-chewing girl right here.
She's the gum-chewing girl. She writes and draws Harley Quinn, and drew Power Girl, and Vampirella, and Starfire, and now working on Wonder Woman with me.
Nice.
And I've written a lot of that stuff, and Jonah Hex, and created Marvel Knights with Joe Quesada, and published my own books with Paper Films and Black Bull and Event Comics, and done a lot of comics. A lot of your long white boxes have our crap in it.
That's true.
How did you guys start Paper Films?
We, I think it was on a Tuesday, and we just said, what's a good name to have it come up with a company? And we said, well, you know, it's like a comic is like a paper film, and then we figured, well, we needed some kind of tax write-off, and we figured, let's form a company named Paper Films, and that's pretty much how it formed.
Yeah. So you two are a married couple who write comics together, which seems to be not. It seems there aren't too many others like that. So how'd you guys meet?
Wow. We met up at Marvel Comics. We both shared an editor who was a wonderful editor. I don't know if she edits anymore, but she was editing Gargoyles at the time, and I was drawing it, and she had Jimmy ink my covers on it.
And we met, and we became friends.
Yeah.
And
we were friends for a long time.
And eventually she seduced me, and we've been together ever since.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So Jimmy, you're from New York, and
yes.
How much does that those roots of you have working class roots in New York? It sounds like.
How much of it does appear in the books?
How much does that appear in the books?
Well, you know, Harley Quinn set in Coney Island. A lot of our books are set in New York.
Yeah.
Because you're right what you know.
Yeah, they say that.
Yeah.
Right what you know, and he really knows Coney Island well.
Yes, I was Carney folk for a while there, and yeah. So you write what you know, and so it's easy to write a city you know. Sort of like if you were in Chicago, and you'd probably set your book in Chicago, I'd hope. So yeah, so it's pretty. It's actually in all the books, in some level. At least a lot of the thinking, a lot of the character stuff that makes up Harley and it makes up Painkiller Jane and everything. They're very New York attitude, very strong female characters.
What does it mean to you to be a New Yorker?
For me, it means that you're used to a blend of people. You're not really. What's the word for it? Where you're
cosmopolitan, or no? You are cosmopolitan.
You are cosmopolitan.
You're not insulated.
Yeah, you're not very insulated. You know everybody and everything.
Everybody and everything.
Different races, different backgrounds, different foods, cultures. So I think it gives a basic overall. Comes off in the writing and the characters. We're able to write different people from different backgrounds pretty easily.
And you are an artist, although you're primarily a writer.
He's a really, really good artist, but he refuses to accept it.
The artist is like the most underpaid, comic artist is the most underpaid art form in the history of man. So, although I can draw, I really don't want to take that much of a cut in my pay to become a comic book artist.
So, Amanda, you're one of my favorite cover artists.
Thank you. Thanks.
I haven't seen too much interiors. Like, why is that?
I love doing interiors. It's actually one of my favorite things to do on Earth. It's just like it takes a lot of time, and when I do interiors, I end up not getting a whole lot of sleep, and just working my butt off, and I'm trying to get back to like a normal state where I can, get enough sleep and then start doing interiors again, because I really do enjoy doing interiors. I love the whole storytelling aspect.
Nice. Jimmy, tell me about the Random Acts of Violence film.
It is a film by Jay Baruchel based on a graphic novel Justin Gray and I did many years ago.
Amazing book.
Jay bought the rights to it, and him and his partner adapted it to a screenplay, and they shot it this past year. And it's going to premiere at the Toronto Film Festival, we're pretty sure, which is in either September or October in Toronto. So we're looking forward to that. But it's loosely based on the book. Jay did his own version of the book, but it's still very loyal to it. And Amanda and I went on a set, and we met the actors and Jay, and it was a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, I mean, Random Acts of Violence is a comic about comics, and I do wonder how much Hollywood understands comics.
Well, I think they understand that they make a lot of money off them.
That's true.
And people enjoy them. So I think they understand, Hollywood understands anything that makes them money. So they have a quick understanding of anything that puts a dollar in their pocket, pretty much. It's a business like anything else.
Yeah. Oh,
That's too cynical?
Yes, but it's all right. It's true.
so in Random Acts of Violence, quick for those who don't know, it's there's a killer called Slasher Man who imitates the violence in a comic book, and it does appear that the creators end up feeling guilty about it. And what would you say is the message of Random Acts of Violence?
I think it's, I think the idea that as creators, you have a lot of power to create something that might influence people, and that after that, you really don't have control of how people interpret it. So they can either make it a positive thing, they can make it a negative thing, but it's not after you create it, it's really not the creator's creation anymore. Once you make it into the public embraces it and makes it whatever they want it to be. So I think it's just like a little warning or a little heads up that even though you create something, somebody else sees it differently than you, and it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. And for instance, in this movie, it's a bad thing.
Right.
But it's just to show that pop culture characters do have a life of their own beyond the creators. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much what the book is about. Mm-hmm. But
I guess this question's for both of you, but it's also for Jimmy because you wrote this book. Like, how much do you think about, like, I mean, you guys write violent comics, so like, do you ever worry about how that might influence somebody, or is that just?
I mean, I think people who read comics are actually like pretty much the sweetest people on earth. They're actually really, really kind, level-headed. They're the people who grow up reading and grow up, like, sometimes unfortunately get bullied and stuff like that. So I think they tend towards being kinder and having a really, really good sense of right and wrong. So we feel like pretty comfortable with our fan base. And no matter what we put out there, we always feel like, like the people who read us are like very good people who will interpret things, they'll see it as the story that it's supposed to be.
And we do go over the top with the violence, so it's almost cartoonish.
Well, it is Harley Quinn.
Yeah, Harley Quinn, or whatever it may be.
She is like Psycho Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. But we know it's over the top, and it's no better and worse than any movie out there.
Yeah, my violence is usually cartoon violence. Yeah.
Although Amanda does beat me, so it's not so cartoony. Right, it's true. I do deserve it.
So how did you guys, this is a loaded question, but how did you guys go about writing Harley Quinn?
How do we go about, like,
well,
how
how did you get hired for the job?
Oh, it was just that we're in the right place at the right time. Dan DiDio, a retailer, asked Dan DiDio, why don't you do a Harley Quinn book? And I was standing right there, and he said, hey, you want to do a Harley Quinn book? And that's pretty much how it happened.
Then he comes home, he's like, hey, Manny, you want to work on Harley Quinn? And I'm like, sure, sounds fun.
It's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not
nothing deep. Nothing deep there.
It was not deep at all.
They didn't do any soul searching to find the right team. They just turned around, and I was there. And
it was totally like a stroke of luck.
It was all luck.
I really like Harley Quinn number 25, where it does it where Harley Quinn basically tells off the Joker for good. Like, tell me about, I guess, any writing process behind that issue.
Well, I mean, what we were trying to do with Harley is one of the most important things was to make her own character. Like, most of the time, I mean, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, she'll be a secondary character in her own book, and we were trying to avoid that. We wanted her to be the main character, so we avoided putting the Joker in. That was 25 or 26?
24 and 25.
Okay. We avoided putting him in until much, much later.
2 years later.
So that you would really, really get to know Harley really, really well. And we also thought it was important that, she is done with Joker.
She acknowledged his
yeah,
existence.
she acknowledged that, you know, this is not the best relationship. Maybe I should try something different.
Yeah, and she also says, this is not a direct quote, I don't have the comment in front of me, but like she says, like, now I know why Batman never killed you. You're just not worth it, basically, which is such a great line.
Who wrote that? Did you write that?
Probably you.
I might have wrote that. You think so?
Like all of the really serious stuff you write, all the really goofy stuff.
Nice.
Although, you know, we both do. Yeah, we both. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys love about comics?
Reading them in a quiet place, all by myself, like for a whole afternoon with a big cup of coffee and chocolate.
I love that I can read a comic at my own pace. Unlike a TV show where it's dictated to you. Comic books one of the few things I can sit there and I can stop and look at the art. I can read it again. I can flip 2 pages back because I missed something. It's a unique art form, and it's an American art form.
The pictures, and you know, it's like a whole nice blend of everything that you love.
Yeah, we do, and it's cheap. It's still cheap to buy. As much as people
It is
complain,
cheap entertainment.
a slice of pizza costs more than the comic right now. It's like ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
So how are you enjoying Comic-Con Revolution in Chicago?
Horrible. It's a terrible show. No, I'm kidding.
It's great. And actually, it feels like the 90s all over again.
Nice.
It is an actual
We're
comic
at
book show.
Rosemont,
Yeah.
and we're doing a comic book show. It's an actual comic book show.
Right.
It's a great
all
show.
about comics, and yeah, I feel like I'm in my 30s.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for your time and
Thank
keep
you.
up the good work.
Thank you so much.
All right.